What up, headbangers? How you doing? I'm Rob O'Day, and welcome to the Greasiest of all time. Today we're chilling with Vancouver's Fallen Stars. How you guys doing?
Woo woo.
Great. How are
Good.
you?
I am waking up. Yesterday was a great day, so I'm slowly waking up with my caffeine.
Yeah, congrats
Yeah.
on the single release.
Thank you, thank you. Why don't you let everybody know who you are and how you guys got together?
All right. Well, I'm Rose. I'm the lead vocalist of Fallen Stars.
I'm Jade. I play the four-string monstrosity that is the bass.
I'm Dave. I play mainly rhythm guitar, sometimes leads, and I also do production.
Yeah. And as for how we got together, Jade, did you want to take that since you started Fallen?
So I wrote a bunch of demos, and Rose encouraged me to put vocals on them, and so I put some vocals on them myself and threw it out on the internet and got a ton of people that really liked it. So I thought, oh man, when we get to Vancouver, we should become, I want to make it a thing. And the only person I would trust to put the amount of emotion and vocals into the thing was Rose. So I was like, hey, you're singing.
Yeah.
And I gave her no choice. And now here she is a few years later. And then I was like, cool, well, I need someone who can play everything I can play, but better, and can take it three steps heavier. And I had seen the Fifth Circle a bunch of times by that point, and reached out to Dave, and Dave was just like, "Bleh," and kind of joined on, and then same with Danny. I'd seen Danny in a ton of bands, and then when I reached out to him, he currently was in no bands. So I was like, hey, do you want to be in a band? And he was like, I don't know. And then kind of that happened. And then we had a connection with another guitarist named Aaron, who joined the band and played just as greasy as I could. So I was super excited to have him on board. And then we kind of we first all got together at the photo shoot for
Yeah, that was the first time
yeah.
everybody had met each other, was our first band photo shoot.
Yeah, like I couldn't. That's actually so funny now that we look back at it, because I think like the last time I'd seen Danny was on a Fifth Circle tour where it was just drunken debauchery and just I hadn't seen him in like 6 months. Everybody shows up like, oh, hey, it was like the first. It felt like uh we just never left. It felt like it had been uh together the whole time.
Mm-hmm. That's always a good
Yeah,
feeling.
and then we cycled through a couple guitarists. As Jade mentioned, we had Aaron for a while, and then Shane Stewart joined us when Aaron took a step back from music after, getting married and doing family life and whatnot. Then Shane Stewart joined us for a while, and he's actually the guitarist that you can hear on the album with Dave that's coming out. And then he recently took a step back to focus more on his solo project, and we've been blessed to have Edison join us, who is a phenomenal guitarist.
I always like to think of it as like that band Alcatraz and just cycling through different guitarists,
Mm-hmm.
but all the guitarists are just amazing and put different things in their own right. I mean, if you hear our first EP, was just with this house and things like that, like Aaron's greasy guitar just sinks in with a lot of stuff. His leads on Spitfire are just fantastic. And then when we had Shane come in and just do the solo for Iron Cage, and just took things to the next level. And then his playing on this record just is phenomenal, and was able to put his mark on it. And then now that we're working with Edison, he's doing his own totally different, unique style, and taking what we're writing now to a different level. And then also putting his own spin on the songs that we have, that we already have recorded. So it's fun.
Exactly. Yeah, we've kind
Yeah.
of gotten heavier and heavier with each guitarist, actually.
And I find that like even just listening to the songs like Iron Cage, you said it, like that song is well fucking written. Every song I heard is so goddamn well written. and it's got its own unique taste. You know what I mean? Like I was trying to pinpoint who it reminds me of, and realistically, it's like a mixture of Coheed and like Rush, and like I love it because it's got so many cool elements to it that I'm like hell yeah, like fuck yeah, I take that, I take that. The guitar is one of my favorite aspects because like the leads and the melodies that are being used, you know what I mean? Like it's super cool. It's almost symphonic at the same time.
That's
Thank
the thing.
you.
I can't write something that these two guys can't play.
Mhm.
So I always write something that sounds okay, and then Dave and whoever else takes it to a whole new level of amazingness.
Mhm.
Even like last Thursday, we're writing some new riffs, and we just had a few things. All of a sudden, Dave was like bump it up, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but I can't play that.
Right? That's like
So
Dale, yeah.
so it's so nice passing the ideas on, and then Danny will take it and like do something totally funky. Like Endless Sea before was just a straight bump a da da but da da, but then now it's like bump da da. It's got like it had a whole different feel to it with the last album, and then so with this stuff we kindly like the new album is an amalgamation of everyone's playing, and I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask. You guys have it coming up with it in the next month, right? Execution.
Yes, yeah, June 18th is the official release date, with the single Vicious Cycle coming out on June 11th with a music video.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome. How was that process? How did you
Yeah.
guys enjoy the recording?
Dave, did you want to
It
take that
was-
one?
It was definitely a longer process. I think we got, what was it, in the first 3-4 months we got all the drums, guitars, bass, etc. done, and then of course there's like real life stuff happening in the meantime, and then of course this fucking pandemic, and here we all are. And then Jade and Rose took a lot of time and really ironed out all the vocals and all the details, and really just instead of just making like a rock record, really put a lot more care and finesse into it. And it took a little bit of time, but I think it was worth it.
I love the group chants. Like it's one of my favorite
Yeah.
parts. Like, I fucking love that. Like I straight up messaged the boys today when I was listening to, I think it's Iron Cage. You guys have like this one group chant that's going the whole time, I think.
Yeah.
And I just like sent it to the boys, and I'm like, you guys gotta fucking listen to this shit. This is so good. Like we need more like group chants. I've been saying it for years. Like bands need more of that.
Yeah.
That punk rock. I don't know. Brohim is still one of the greatest songs in the world because of that fucking chant. So
Absolutely.
like hearing the backing vocals with the powerful, like with Rose vocals, like you guys have like this cool element. And like I remember when we had you on the morning show, it was, you were explaining that like some festivals are like, oh, you're not heavy enough, and some festivals are like, you're too heavy. That's not bad.
Yeah.
You guys appeal to so many different people then, right? And I think that that's kind of a benefit, especially nowadays, because if you're
Yeah,
straight
it's-
metal, you won't be able to get any of those rock fans. And if you're just rock, you're not going to
Absolutely.
gain metal fans. But you guys appeal to basically any range of music, from punk rock to metal. So I mean,
We're the Hannah Montana of the metal world. Best of
Oh,
both
God.
Yeah, I
worlds.
think
I mean, realistically,
I think it's
always say
ironic
that,
being in the middle like that. It's
yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good thing.
It's tough. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like you said. Well, I mean, I guess it really depends on the way you look at it. Yeah, it can go either way. We get a little bit of both, and then it's interesting, like kind of straddling those two. And it's not it's like you said, we're not rock, we're not metal, we're kind of in between. And yeah, it's definitely interesting because I could definitely, I couldn't say to my friends, oh, check out this metal band. They're like, oh, there's clean singing, or what, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I get ripped
it's,
on for clean singing all the time. I understand.
Yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting. I kind of like being like, obviously with Fifth Circle, I already have like the heavy outlet, or you know what I mean. So it's like I really like being part of something that's like poppy, or like quote unquote
Yeah.
poppy.
Yeah, and I hate when
But
people like
and that's
assume that pop is a bad thing. Like poppy is a bad thing. I mean,
Well, it's
well,
yeah, it's kind of why we settled on that weird pop metal kind of thing,
mhm.
because it's got a weird, it's got one of those things where people say it and then people are like, what the fuck is that? What do you mean by that? And then they go and
yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
Well, and
What
realistically,
I love
we're in
about
North America.
yeah.
So people in North America, their music tastes are set in their ways, but your guys' music would appeal to Europe and UK way more.
as
Mm.
as we hear from this record so far with our promotions, we've been hearing a lot of good stuff back from the UK
Mhm.
and Belgium. Rose is a contact over there that really loved it. Just
Yeah,
yeah.
he had some great bands and artists that he sort of compared us to. It's my favorite thing actually is hearing who people sort of relate our music to,
Mhm.
because as you touched on before, there's not a lot of bands that have like exactly the same sound that we do. We're
And I,
that
I
weird
I know
amalgamation.
hundreds and hundreds of bands, and I'm usually like, boom, boom, boom. That's who it is. That's who you sound like. I can only.
Yeah,
It took me like a good 2 hours of listening to your guys' albums this morning to be like, the only bands I can relate them to are Coheed, like with
yeah,
the technicality and like the almost storytelling in the lyrics. Like
Mhm.
there's just a lot of really
yeah.
cool elements, and I think that our BC music scene is so incredibly diverse and talented, and I
Hmm.
think that we're not going to get picked up here. BC Canada is not going to be where we get picked up. Like you guys are going to end up getting a record deal from a European company, kind of a thing, and you're going to get flown out
Mhm.
there
Yeah.
to live because
Which would be
Canada doesn't.
amazing.
Well, right, but it's just because like realistically, the only band at the moment out of BC that's being worldwide circulated is Spirit Box.
Yeah.
You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And they're
Yeah,
great. They're an amazing band, but there's so many other
Hmm.
bands in BC that deserve to be seen. And I think that
absolutely.
if we stopped focusing on just like, okay, we got to spread our word in Canada, and we actually like focus on, hey, you know what? Like we do. It's 2021. We have the opportunity to be heard worldwide. Why not fucking make a fan base somewhere that's actually going to appreciate us, kind of a thing? So,
Exactly. Yeah, the Canadian music scene is so hard to break into just in general.
mm-hmm.
I love it. I absolutely adore the musicians and the art that comes out of Canada,
Me too.
but it is like an incredibly hard market to make it in first before you make it
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere
I think
else.
the best thing, like or I guess the best anecdote about it that I routinely hear is it's great to be a band in Canada. It's great to like play music in Canada because there's so many different people, especially Vancouver. There's so many different
Mm-hmm.
like you said, like tastes and styles and genres, etc., etc. But it's great to be a band and live here, but you have to go somewhere else. There's you just have no other option,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be the States or
UK,
Europe, and it's
Australia. Yeah.
and it's a shame. Like Vancouver, I think is really a very good example of that because especially Vancouver, there's so much music, and there's so many talented musicians, and there's not very fucking much anybody can do with it
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because there's what 2-3 places to play here, and even then 2/3 of the people don't want to fucking book you. They don't even want to talk to you. You know what I mean? Like so
Yeah.
it's great to be a band here, but you got to get out.
Yeah, no, one of my first band, we actually split up. The drummer and bass player moved to Vancouver ahead of me, and
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, they ended up hating each other within like 6 months of living there, and I don't think they actually still talk to this day.
Oh yeah, don't.
It
yeah.
was just
That
that,
can be tough.
yeah,
Yeah.
like when a lot of bands think that like you have to move from where you are to Vancouver to get big, and I think that we're lucky, especially with COVID, because a lot of people are self-sufficient with our recording and our marketing and promotion.
Hmm.
Like Jade kills it. You know what I mean? On
Yeah.
top of like one of the top people in our community that's pushing for a change. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a handful of us that are doing it, and I think that that's kind of us just being like, we're gonna take it into our own hands. Like you have Kaya who puts on Metaloca
Metal
lipstick, and then you
lipstick.
have Sloan who puts on the other one. I can't remember what it's called. I'm on a blank right
Oh,
now.
Decimate.
Yeah, and it's like we have these, we have vocalists and like members of bands that are putting on these festivals, and we don't need
And it's
anybody to do it for us.
it's a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because they won't. There
Mhm.
aren't the people to do that, and that's the
Mhm.
problem. Like it's almost by necessity. Kind of like what I was saying is like if we don't set up these festivals, we don't set up these stages, set up these places, they just won't happen, and nobody will do it. And it's it just kind of is what it is. But I mean, it's a really good saying. There's always for every band, there's always fucking 10 assholes trying to dig gold from rock and roll, and they'll do it. But it's everybody's just out for a buck, and it's unfortunate because it just drags all the rest of us down with us, especially with like the pay to play kind of stuff and all the just yeah. I mean, what do? You have to do it yourself, or it won't exist.
Exactly, and I think that's kind of where we're, or at least the BC scene is moving more towards. Is like we're just kind of like, you know what, fuck it. There's no venues for us. Like realistically, there's no venues. We have a huge opioid crisis, and the government is always talking about how they want to fix it. So, I mean, I suggested to the government, BC government, that we get a all ages venue, and I think it was actually after our interview with Fifth Circle, because we were talking about like
Yeah.
an average pay for musicians if they hit a certain point. Like if you can prove this is a profession for you, like make it a job. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think our voices are slowly getting heard, which is kind of a cool thing. And it'll just take time.
The absolute biggest thing that's hindering it is that there's no united front for the government to throw money at.
Mm-hmm.
When the government announced that they were putting $3 million into the arts in Vancouver, or 30 million, whatever the heckin' number it was, it went to the Ballet Society. It went to the VSO. It went to the Blues Fest. It went to the Folk Fest, and none of that went to
local scene.
Any of the rock, the metal, the locals, the bars, the rickshaw. None of that touched any of that because there wasn't an overhead company that we all fall under. There's no registered business or society that they can be like, oh, here's $8 million to you. You can funnel it out. They can't do that because there's no one there. So just not having that means that we don't see that. None of us get that. And it's really hindering. There's people like the Musicians Coalition. There's Rob and Suna and those guys with Sam and just all these different things that are trying to unite people. But it's until we get something that's registered, that's taxable, that's run well, that can incorporate all of us. Really, that's what we need. And it's hard because as people say, there is a musicians union out there, but no one knows about it. SoCan has so many of these tools that half the bands don't utilize.
I love
same
SoCan.
with and like there's all these funds, like the artist development thing just coming around again, and like half the bands won't apply or don't know how to,
and the downfall
people
to that
like
is the genre. They'll only pick folk bands and pop bands and like bands that play on CBC. Like I don't think I've ever listened to a screaming metal song on CBC.
Well, that's the thing. Like even Music BC, as much as I love it, and they're amazing at what they do. I've seen all of their music showcases or Best in Vancouver or Women of Vancouver showcases and everything like that. It caps off at maybe pop rock. There's nothing that goes deeper. Not even like heavy rock. There's only like Mumford and Sons rock and like maybe Imagine Dragons kind of rock. At
you get
best,
like Said the Whale and Hey Ocean. Like they're
100%.
You know what I mean? Like it's indie rock. You don't really get you don't get like Foo Fighters rock sponsored, and that's like
which is still
sad.
so accessible.
Which is very mainstream.
Yeah, like even bands like Unleash the Archer that are doing phenomenally well, you don't really hear on local radio.
No, and that's a big thing is the lack of support from not the BC government, but BC in general for our arts, which is a huge thing. It's like we have such a small society as is in BC. You know, I think there's like 6 million people in the entire province, and like 2 million of them are in the Vancouver area. The other 2 are outside, and then the rest of BC is 2 million. So like, I know Kelowna has a quarter of a million. Like we have 250,000. That's not a big population, but like, if you were to even take 10% of that and that supported the music community, that would be amazing. But you don't even get 0.1% of that to support the music community. As where 15 years ago, the amount of venues that they had and all ages shows and even sponsorship just for bands to go on tour was a hell of a lot more. So it kind of... Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely one of the hardest things is that, you know, you can't look at it as just a one thing that's hurting the scene. It's the rent that goes up that makes the venues have their bottom line get tighter and tighter. So they can't bank on these shows that only bring in 30 to 40 people. They have to bank on the karaoke nights that bring in 100 people. They have to bank in DJ nights that have a more guaranteed result. Like, as much as it sucks, these venues have to either survive, so they you know, they're getting squeezed. That means they have to squeeze elsewhere, and we get squeezed out. And it's you know, you see it at Funky's, you've seen it at the Red Room, all these different venues. That Granville Strip doesn't have a live music venue on it at all anymore. You can't go up there and see bands anymore. There's not a single venue up there that does live music.
There's technically the Roxy, but it's cover band.
But even then, like, they do their showcase like
and that's the
4
one
months of
water,
the year,
right?
kind of thing. I love them.
Yeah, I performed there before. Yeah, that's
that's
the Roxy. Which one is that again? Is that the one that's on?
It's just up Granville Street. It was across from a place called Joe's Apartment, which is now Studio Records.
Oh, okay. I might be thinking of a different place. I know that it was by like the breweries and stuff like that. A venue I played. I can't remember what it was though.
Okay, that's... Yeah, I don't remember what that venue is.
Oh, are you talking? Are you talking about Backstage Lounge?
Yeah,
Backstage Lounge. That's the one.
Yeah, that's exactly where I played.
I used to work down the street from there.
Yeah, that was a fun venue. That was really fun. Like, and same with Rickshaw. Like, that's a wicked venue. And like, isn't Ginger coming to the Rickshaw? And like,
well, in October,
we'll see.
Yeah, they're supposed to be.
Well, it's supposed to be, right?
Fingers crossed.
I mean, like, and that alone is a victory in my eyes, because I've noticed that there's a lot of big bands that haven't been coming to Vancouver in the past like 5 years, 10 years. Like the number of major bands.
The worst part is
down.
Because half of those major bands are restricted by what, like three places or 4 places. You're either going to play Rogers Arena or whatever it's called
BC
now,
Place,
and fuck the both of that, because you have to sell 15,000 tickets or some shit like that.
What about
even just
is the Peony Forum still going?
It's around.
Yeah, but they don't. It's I see, like,
it's mostly conventions
the Slayer
and stuff that go on there now.
Because I saw Deftones and
Slayer Lamb of God tour
stuff.
was there.
Yeah, I saw the Rockstar Energy Festival with Disturbed and Avenged Sevenfold there as well.
It'd be cool to see those kind of venues open up to locals and do like Battle of the Bands.
It would.
You know what I mean? Like, even that concept, if not like call it Battle of the Bands, because that concept's stupid. But
even like Winterfest, Fallen Fest, all these local festivals that are being put on that are now at the Rickshaw. Winterfest was at the Rickshaw. That was awesome. All these, shout out to Colton and Joey. These guys are pushing hard, and like, if I know it's hard to guarantee, and that's what these big venues need. They're like, well, how many people can you guarantee? And we're like, I don't know, 10 people. Like, because
maybe
because the Rickshaw will take that chance. Mo will be like, yes, come on in. If it's a flop, it's a flop. If it works, it works. Like
Mhm.
Mo was awesome at doing that, but not a lot of venues will take it. And that's the thing. Going back with the bottom line, they want that guarantee. They want that okay, you can book 30 people, like 30,000 people. Okay, I'll maybe let you into my venue now.
Yeah,
And it's
even the
annoying.
And
smaller ones with like Commodore and Venue and stuff, it would be great if they open that up more to the local musicians.
Mhm.
And
Especially the
I
Commodore.
think a really big aspect, that we have to talk about, unfortunately, yeah, because you have the Commodore, you have the Venue, and all these places that that do the mid-sized bands. It's only seated, like you don't you like you're gonna go sit down and watch a band, and it's not like it works for some bands, but it doesn't work for others.
Mhm.
But I think what the biggest the biggest thing that has to be talked about, is touring bands are regularly, especially heavy bands, especially whatever type of bands like that, but are routinely avoiding Vancouver because you have to play the rickshaw, which is in the downtown center of like fucking
Yeah, the downtown east side.
It's a heroin central. It's disgusting. Like
Mhm.
you can't park your car out there without worrying about fucking crackheads breaking in and stealing your car stereo.
Yep.
Like you walk around, it's fucked. Like who would want to go down there, especially people who aren't used to it. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? And then so like the bands don't want to go. It deters a lot of other than like core metalheads from going to see these bands, because bands don't come here, so people are gonna go, and
Mhm.
people here are used to it. But people, yeah, they roll through, they look at the venue like, fuck this, bye bye,
Mhm.
and it's brutal.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I've
Though
been
I've seen
curious about
some,
too, is why
yeah,
the Vancouver scene has died in the past 5 years. Like it incredibly died in 5 years, and that's a sad thing
I
because
and it's not just unfortunately, it's not just music. It really is just like it's part of a larger discussion or conversation, but you just see the way the city's prioritizing condos over people, just all
Mhm.
this bullshit. So they push everything out, including the arts, and they just push it and
yeah,
push it, push it and push it until all we're going to be able to do here is just build condos, live in condos, and just talk about condos. There's nothing fucking else in the city.
yeah.
Yeah. No.
Maybe that's why the condo door is still kicking around.
No, I mean it's not easy being a band from Vancouver too because well, it's the only big city on the West Coast. I mean,
Yeah,
so like
touring
a
is just
bitch.
if you want to go broke,
Yeah, right?
here's an
Exactly.
Tour
easy way to
Canada.
do it.
Yeah, it cost me
Yeah.
what, $3,000 to go to fucking a week long tour to Alberta. Cost me $3,000. Like that's not cheap, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That would have been like
yeah.
wicked in the States. You would have been able to
We
hit
were
the
in
Oh
like
swing
yeah.
a
cities.
hairstring budget. Like I think, yeah, we did like fifth that I think was 8 days in 2 weeks, and we lived out of a van, and we set up tents and we camped, and I think
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it was about $2,000, and I didn't come back with a single fucking thing in my pocket. So I mean, like, it was fun, but
Yep.
why would you do that? And like it's funny, like another member from another band texted me recently, like, oh hey, we should do a the Western Canada tour. And I was like, no, hands down, no, it's not worth it. Don't do it. If you're gonna do anything, like the only thing I was actually considering is like, if you eat a little bit of the cost up front, buy a plane ticket, dump yourself in Toronto, tour 8 cities around, fly back. Even that, you're guaranteed to lose money,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like pretty much the only thing you could maybe do,
Yeah. All
in my opinion, other
realistically,
than drive 16 hours.
North America's music scene has completely changed too. California is no longer. People are moving away from Cali. They do not want to be there. LA, people are
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
fucking piecing the fuck
mm-hmm,
out.
Yeah.
Texas is
mm-hmm.
the biggest music scene in North America. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Austin.
Florida, Texas, the southern states, like they are. That's where you want to tour. If you're a Canadian band and you want to get heard,
Mm-hmm,
contact some of those guys because like it in the long run it will cost you less to book a flight with equipment, get a passport, all that shit just to go to the states
mm-hmm,
to perform than it would
mm-hmm,
to do it in your own country here.
there was a
mm-hmm,
band named Stella that did just that back when I first moved to Vancouver in 2011. They or 2009 or whatever. They were around, and I kept hearing about them, but I never saw them live because they were always down in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, they came to Vancouver, played a hometown show, and just blew me away, which is how amazing they were. But they had like 21,000 Facebook followers, all from the States, because they went down. They spent the money. They booked it down to like the middle of like just on the border between like north and south,
Mm-hmm.
and basically just went around for like, because you could throw a rock and hit a town and just go in and play a bar, and then boot the next day to a different city, play another bar, and just kept doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And they Kill Matilda did the same thing. Boop down there, boop down to Mexico. It's that's with the proximity and hitting those smaller fan bases and those smaller cities, popping into a bar that not necessarily does like music, but they have packed nights every night, and you go and you throw down on that, and you make a few bucks and you move on to the next city.
Yeah, and really the only area in Canada you can do that, and it's still nothing but a gamble, is Southern Ontario. Just play those small little towns, and even then you're just guaranteed to do nothing but lose money.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why I always kind of suggest, like, you may as well just go to the States. Like, just suck it up. It seems like it's a lot of effort to get the visa and the passport. And,
It is the PT visa.
but realistically,
Yeah, they are
like,
not making it easy.
exactly. It's not easy for us at all.
Well, what is it? The PT visa, like I'm
not too
lucky
sure, yeah.
in the fact that I'm like dual citizen, but the PT visa, I believe last time I checked, is $900 American.
Mm-hmm.
Just to apply it. That's just to cross the border to say you make money in a band.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
And then everything.
And even that is still, for 5 members, would be cheaper than traveling Canada.
Yeah.
Which is a sad thing, right? So, realistically, it shows if a band really wants to do it, they're going to have to invest and or get lucky and find someone who's going to be like, I'm going to fly your ass down here to perform, because they don't really do that anymore.
Or do it.
Yeah, not so
Or
much.
do what everybody else is doing and migrate online, and like you see what's happening. I mean, everybody's already got their phone like this all day long, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah, no, it's
even
my
at the
biggest
shows,
pet peeve in
people are
life.
hanging out in the back on their phone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think that
I'm guilty of it too, but
I think that when shows open up, I think that like, I have this weird feeling that social media is just kind of like going to collapse itself. I don't know why, but I have this weird feeling that it'll just collapse, and then people will be like, well, what do we do now? Well, you go back to going to
form another one.
I've had that same thought for quite some time.
Yeah, it's just
it's interesting seeing down south where they've opened up shows again, and like their whole, if you're Dublin, you guys, you don't need to wear a mask and things like that, and the flood of people that are going to shows shows you a little glimpse of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to bands to capitalize that. We can't just go back to trying to do the same thing. We should try and make it better. We should try and put on bigger, better shows to not only, get the regular people to come back, but to show that the new people that are coming out, that live music is fantastic and amazing. And I'm hoping that it gives a nice resurgence to people that want to come out to shows. But it's up to bands to make it a cool event, not just, show
really
up
work
and
on their set and their show.
Be tight, have a lot of fun on stage. Like, there's so many bands I can name off on top of my head around town that I will die to go see the minute they post an announcement up.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, oh man, Pub 340, 2 days from now, I am there. I'm camping out front. Like, it'll take some work.
Yeah, and I think that it's I can't remember which band it was that I interviewed, but they said that there was, who was it? I think it was Broken Calling from the UK. They were talking about how during the 1920s pandemic, right after the pandemic, there was a huge music boom of like jazz and which led to blues, which led to what is now rock and roll and metal. And I mean, he was like, I think it's just going to be the new boom, and it'll be changed because we spent 60 to 70 years doing the same fucking thing in the industry.
Yeah.
Like, it never changed. It only just got worse, and we didn't realize it. And now it kind of died because the major labels aren't making money off their bands.
No,
know?
they are done. The days of getting a record label to pay for anything is sweet Jesus history. I wish that happened nowadays.
Yeah, record labels are basically just there to be the middleman between you and sponsors nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that they're gonna have to understand that, and bands have more of a power now because we can pick and choose. It's not like we have to accept what we're given, which is a good thing for us because I mean, for God knows how long.
That's a double-edged coin though too, because you have to you also have to take into account, like, yes, the bands do have the power over the record labels, but now that so many people do everything on their own and there's such a flood, now there is, it's not necessarily a buyer's market either. It's it's quite oversaturated as well. So it's a matter of, like, I don't know. It's I don't know what the answer to that is, but
I know for a fact
find out.
locally, over this pandemic, I've seen maybe 1 or 2 Kelowna bands post anything. Say they're doing something or do something, you know what I mean? Like, I've seen a lot of bands just sit here for the last year and a half, and either they're not posting about being in recording or anything, but like, I haven't seen a lot coming out. So I feel like a lot of bands, that saturation is gonna be gone after this. Like, they're gonna be trying to catch up to the people who have been making this a business, because that's what we had to do.
Well, and that's the thing, yeah. You'll see really quick I just, even locally here, I've seen, a few of my friends' bands, or just people in general, just basically just exit as fast as possible. So it'll be interesting to see the bands that have actually done something with the time, and the bands that just fold, or the bands just sit around and, like, I see a lot of posts, oh, can't wait to play shows. Like, well, who the fuck's gonna go see you?
Yeah.
What have you
done
done?
Shit all for a year and a half. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, are you even still a band?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's not the fact that we have our power over, like, record labels per se. I think it's more just we've in the past year, we've been able to gain our value back as not just a product or a commodity that can be sold, but now we're back to being like,
well, definitely, because people value, like when live shows went away, and like the first few months, people were like, oh, that sucks, and then like 4 months later, people were like, man, I miss shows. And then now people would, like, would die to go see a Monkey play Pub 340 with a rusted can. Like, people
I would see that, actually.
Yeah, and like
I would
pretty sure I saw that outside the rickshaw a few days ago.
It's like, we, as I said, like, as you guys are saying, like, the power has shifted. And it's up to the bands, when things come back, to not like, oh man, cool, let's book a show, and then show up and they haven't played their songs in a year, and they're having to work together to, and they come and they play a shitty show, and it's like they're a beginner band.
Even worse, play the same songs,
Yes. Oh my God.
Nobody cared about a year. That nobody cared about 2 years ago.
Yeah. If you're still riding off your first,
I didn't even think about that. So true.
If you come back and you're still playing your first EP that I heard a year ago,
bye.
I'm not buying your album. I'm not buying your shirt.
The only difference would be is if that sound got better and better. Like, when that band Aviator Shades was around, that's basically how they started. They had like 4 to 6 songs that they would play for like 3 years, but it got better and better and better, and the sound evolved and the songs changed. But if it doesn't do that, then it's just boring.
Well, and that's the thing. Like that's why I'm saying it's within the band to make it interesting. You can play the same songs, but if you know that there's a bunch of fans that are there to see you, and they go up and they're like, play Darkness, and you're like, you know what? We will. And you throw it in there, it's not in your set list, and you play it, and everyone just goes nuts. Like, those are the things that'll make it fun. If you do you're throwing a beer can around on stage and you're drinking it, make it a fun thing for people to see you live, but if you come back and you're ripping your same songs in the same way, and people are like, oh, that was cool, I'm happy to see other bands.
Yeah, exactly. There's a huge dedication factor.
I like the Darkness reference. Thank you. That was really funny. We had context. We had one dude. Oh my God! At every show would just get shit-faced wasted and stand in the front, and he's like, "Play Darkness." Like, dude, No, we're not. Sorry, go away. Stop.
Free bird.
Right?
Free bird.
Freebird is
Like,
that's
dude, we get
best.
it. Joke's old.
I love
But
that video
getting
online where the guy's like
yeah,
gin and juice, and he's like, that's just slightly worse than, or slightly less worse than calling out Freebird.
Yeah.
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 but like getting back to as there's release and things like that, we are doing a live stream show. It'll be on the same day as the album release. And getting back to that, like, we wanted to make this something that's unique and a lot of fun. We have some killer bands. We have Anarcheon, we have Collision Course, and we have Lost Nebula from Mexico, who also is featured on True Love off our album. And we're all going to be in the chat room. We're all going to be hanging out, having a good time as our sets are playing. We're really, and we even are playing our first single that we ever wrote, or that ever came out.
Released.
Yeah, and people are always asking, play, that's
heart.
that's our darkness, and and we wanted to do it, and we did it. We changed some things up. We made it a lot of fun, and we're really excited to really have a fun event, and I hope people can come watch and check it out.
I think people will. I think that people are kind of craving something new. They're tired of the same old fucking Cardi B and bullshit. You know what I mean? There's a weird movement
Yeah.
of people who are looking for actual bands again, and I think that you guys have like the perfect sound to introduce people into metal, kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like it appeals to so many people. So it definitely is a benefit where you guys will be able to gain a quicker following than most people who are just like straight death metal per se. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
diversity is key, especially as a musician, because if you can only play one genre of music,
100%.
you're not really a complete musician. You know.
But that's the thing. Like, I love seeing the evolution of local bands that I know of, and like, I think, seeing, even referencing Dave's band Fifth Circle, going back and listening to the first things on their Spotify, and listening to like the like Dave showed me the new single that's coming out, and like the dynamics are amazing. Like, I love seeing taking things that they hear from other things and like are working it in and changing and evolving and throwing things like that. With our record, that's really what this is. We have two instrumentals on it. We have tracks with strings on it. We have 3-4 layer harmonies going on at parts, and we really wanted to showcase and we really wanted to show off kind of what we want to sound like.
It's not so eclectic,
just a rock record.
Like every song is a little bit different genre wise, and that's my favorite part about it, is that as you're listening to the album, it's not boring. It's sonically very interesting song to song. As you're listening to one, it doesn't just fade into the next and you're like, oh wait, is that the same song but it's like 15 minutes long? It's actually diversified, and it's probably my favorite part about the album.
Right, and I think that's 100%. That's a good feeling when you have created something that you're genuinely proud of, and I think people will appreciate that a hell of a lot more than just pushing out an album just for shits and giggles.
For shiggles, as I say.
Yeah.
for poops and chuckles.
Yeah, because I mean, realistically, like the bands that have lasted over the years, the ones that are legends, they didn't just throw things out just to be doing it. They sat. Some musicians spent years on albums, not just like 6 months. Like they spent 4 years. Like there's a lot that goes into writing.
Yeah, and I give a shout out to a lot of bands that take their time on tracks, and I give a shout out to bands that just put out their rough demos just to get something out. And then later on, like
and
when
then
we,
spend the time.
yeah, and then spend the time and hone it. Like 2 of these tracks on this new record, we already have released, and they're live tracks that we did live off the floor. And we came back and we made them 100 times better. Dave worked his magic, and they sound monstrously different, and it's I love it.
Even the vocal tones are different in them now than the live off the floor.
Yeah,
well, especially because you couldn't hear yourself at all in the live off the floor.
Yeah, well, and in the last year and a half, I've taught myself to scream properly, so there's going to be little bits of screams incorporated into the new album.
And that is not an easy thing to learn, the proper techniques. Like, I know a lot of people who just love going and go, ah! It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Like, to have an actual good scream where you can go from scream to singing without fucking puking. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy.
Yeah,
because it's
without puking or without killing your voice, and just like stripping your
diaphragm and the throat. Like, understanding how to properly, okay, there's the pressure and there's the amount of throat that I need. You know, it's not easy. There's a lot of people overlook.
It's a balance that you gotta learn, practice. It takes so much practice. And actually, I got to practice because in our jam room, my bandmates like to turn it up louder and louder and louder every time we play. So I basically had to start screaming in order to hear myself. So,
yeah, it's funny because the way our jam space is laid out, both so there's two. Two drums on either side, and they're both on risers. So if you have just like a 412 cab on the floor, it's very hard for the drummer to hear you because his cymbals are way up here. So we play with full stacks, which of course get quite loud quite fast.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I'm often standing between the guitar and the bass amps, and then the drums are right behind me. Even with the it's hard to hear.
Yeah,
well, especially because we had a musician come in and fill in on guitar for us for one session, and he's played years, and he came in and was like, "You guys are loud." And we're like, "Yeah,
but you know,
turn it up to 11."
Well, fuck yeah, right? You may as well. It's it's a weird time for bands too. I find like there's a lot of bands who are emerging, and there's a lot of different movements too that are emerging, and it makes me really happy. And I find it very unique, like especially your guys' band. You know what I mean? It gives me hope because there's I don't know how to say it. I know that there's a lot of negative stigma on the LGBTQ community in metal, and I think that you guys are fucking amazing. Like, that's one of my favorite facts is that you guys are supportive, you know what I mean? And it makes you so much more, valuable, as people.
It kind of makes no sense to me that people wouldn't, it makes no sense, like, obviously, like, I'm not part of that community, but, like, it makes no sense why people wouldn't support it. It makes absolutely no sense, especially, like, when you're in like a heavy rock or hard rock. It's kind of like watching like marginalized people be racist to each other. It's like, how does it make any sense?
No, it
like how does a marginalized community exclude?
And I think that's
something.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go for it.
Well, I was just gonna say it's one of the most difficult things for some artists in our genre too. Like I have a guy on my page, and he made a post, and he's like, the hardest thing for me ever was to come out around my friends because my friends were all metalheads. And I'm like, that's a sad fact. That makes me sad because metalheads to me were always the ones who would accept anyone. So that's
the thing. I get more support from the metal community in Vancouver than I have from anyone in my entire life.
Yep.
The minute I vocalized and like put something out on the internet, and I went to the next show and I was still in just a t-shirt and sweats, and people started calling me by the pronoun that I wanted to. People, when I made my name announcement, I show up at shows and people that I don't even know come up to me and use that name. It's very rare now that I get people that they must know me from 20 years ago to have come up to now use the old name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so refreshing to me because that's a big part of the trans community is having that recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us feel that we don't get it from people that are around us.
Our
And so the
families,
sheer
your
fact that
friends, yeah.
yeah, and the sheer
Yeah.
fact that I can go to any metal show in the city and wear what I want, present myself how I want, and people call me by what I want,
Yep.
blows my mind. Like I don't know what I was ever afraid of, but from the sheer support from my bandmates and from the metal community, it's made me a stronger person.
Good, and that's what
Yeah,
I
and
that's what I love. I think that's what makes me
I was
love our community, because you do see that changing. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
like not even in little steps, in leaps and bounds, which is a beautiful thing.
absolutely.
Because
When I was growing up, I used to go to a lot of different like punk, hard rock, metal shows here on the island, and they would be all ages shows. I was like between the ages of 13 and 18, moshing in the pits with all these people, and it was where I felt, included. I was this little pansexual, bisexual teenager that
mm-hmm.
in the town that I lived in was socially outcasted, was made fun of. I was bullied constantly. And the only place I felt at home was at these like hard rock metal shows, in the pit with all these people that are like 6'5" and throwing elbows. But
Mm-hmm.
in that, if somebody falls, they pick you up.
Yeah.
There's such a community there, and that's both like physically and mentally too. If you're having an off day, somebody's going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've wanted to always be a part of as well, which is why I think it's fantastic that we identify as like the LGBTQ2 plus
Mm-hmm.
community band, just to make it like known in the forefront we are accepting and loving of all people.
And that's all
Well,
it is.
and yeah, and the thing is, like, you can be an ally and still be a part of our part of the community.
Mm-hmm.
Dave, Danny, Edison,
Yeah.
they are just as important as anyone who, because they'll be there. They got your back. They're true
Yeah.
allies, and
Well, it's a community,
never,
right?
yeah,
Community,
and
that's
never,
what's
never.
lacking, is
Yeah,
that community.
it needs to be that community, and that's what I love about the metal scene, and things like that. And I wish that in the future, everyone's just everyone, and you can just be yourself.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think that's why
everybody
I
be
always
yourself.
say, I feel like metalheads have the template for world peace. You know what I mean? If like,
Yeah,
if you were
we
just
may look scary.
yeah,
but-
well, that's what it is. You
Yeah.
put on and that's the one thing, we do put on a front, and it's because we've been damaged in one way or another. You know what I mean? But that damage has led us to be a stronger community. And I think that if people were to take from that lesson, that we're all damaged, doesn't matter where you're from. You can be poor, you can be rich, you can be anything you want. Everyone has to deal with pain and damage. So I think the concept
Mhm.
that, like, you're different than me, or the racism and just like, segregating people makes no sense. Because like, I mean, we all
No.
we all bleed red. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know a person who bleeds green or purple. So
I once bled like purple black blood from my leg, but it was only once.
that,
so-
that might be an infection.
Yeah, it was a rusty trailer hitch, and yeah, I was really
Ooh.
young.
But it's like,
yeah,
for me,
either that or
I've-
I'm an alien. so.
right? And I mean, for me, like, I've done a lot of different.
I knew it the whole time.
Right? No, for me,
Yeah.
I've done a ton of different genres of music over my career too. I did rock, I did electronic music, I did hip hop for years. I was a touring hip hop artist, and every genre
Oh, wow.
turned me off because they were so cutthroat. And
Mhm.
I've always been a metalhead since I was young. So I always knew the metal community was there. But because there are those elitists, it's hard to break into it. Because like bands like us,
Ugh.
who aren't
Yeah.
straight death metal. We'll get a lot of stigma where people are like, yeah, you're not metal. What determines metal?
Yeah.
Metal is an attitude. Metal is a fuck you mentality. It has nothing to do with the music. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
music is
Yeah,
music.
something actually that the one sort of genre that always reminds me of our band is that almost emo-esque sound that people would talk about in the early 2000s. My love, emo kid for life.
Fuck yeah. Atreyu, you know, like,
Yeah,
some of my
but
favorite
people give
bands
that
are.
label such a bad rep.
I love
But I
Seosin.
love,
I love Circus
oh yeah,
Survive. You know what I mean? Like, I have a high vocal
absolutely.
range as a male. So for
Yeah.
me growing up, I felt really uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, well, I don't sound like a man. I sound like a chick. I just
Yeah,
had to
and I had the
accept,
opposite effect. Like I have a low voice for a female, so I don't
right?
sound like the chick. So
Yeah, so I mean, and that alone will drive people insane. I just had to accept, like, I have a higher range. I can't hit lower
yeah,
notes. It's just something I
Well, and
can't do.
and yeah, and you have bands like Leprous coming to the forefront and showing that you can be that weird experimental opera metal
Mm-hmm.
and still, be have that heaviness, that progness. Man, like it's
yeah,
it's a playground. It's a playground of genres
Yeah.
that
yeah,
that really happen.
I just think the whole concept of like labeling genres drives me nuts. We need to just get rid of it and just accept it that it's
Oh
music.
yeah.
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, even
It's all
people
music.
classifying people, like, we're all people. It's all music. We're all people. Just like, that's
Yeah, it's like when you were
just
mentioning
love one another.
pop music earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like the label pop started as a term meaning popular,
Popular.
as in a lot of people listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a specified sound or genre. It just meant it was popular.
Yeah. And popularity is only a bad thing when it creates an ego. I mean, if you're
Yeah,
popular and you're creating a movement and something that helps people or like pushes people to make a change in their life, then I mean, that's really what matters.
exactly.
So,
Yeah,
I think being in a band is one of the most important things if you are a band, to use your ability, no matter how big or small you are, to state something, not just make music.
Mhm.
Like, I get
yeah,
asked a lot, especially lately, like, what our lyrics are about. And I'm genuinely honest. I'm like, it's about political strife, the way the world is, and my mental health. I have mental illness, and I'm open about it. You know what I mean? You have to be open about these things to make a change. So I think most people don't.
Mhm.
They're scared. You know, a lot of people are scared to hear no or what people are gonna say and judge them for. So I find that being in a band kind of gives you that ability to give people hope. You know, make a change just by saying something
yeah,
or making them feel something, which is a beautiful thing. Because, like, politicians used to do that. And I think that politicians have become this weird, you know, like, they're not for the people. I think bands are for the people. So I think it's a beautiful time
yeah.
for us, just in general.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So for the question that I've been waiting, because I have always wanted to ask Jade this question. If there was anything in the music industry that you guys would change, what do you think it would be?
How much time do you got? No, I'm kidding.
I
Yeah.
got all the time in the
um,
world.
like I don't know. I think the one thing I've seen consistently over the years that I've interviewed bands, and I'll always ask them, from one interviewer to another. Like I've asked bands, I'm like, what's one thing do you think that would help the scene or help bands and things like that? And other bands always say, oh man, I wish everyone would support each other, and things like that. And like I'm like, oh, that's awesome. And then I'll post their interview. And then when I finish the next interview with the other band, I'll message the first band and be like, hey, I finished a new episode. Do you mind sharing? And they won't take the 2 seconds to hit share
Totally.
after preaching about supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing pages of bands that are sharing other people's music as well. When they find a cool song, or they're like, "Hey, my buddy just dropping a new record. Go check it out, and I'll post it on their social media, because it takes 5 minutes to make a post. It helps people get it out there. I love seeing bands support other bands and things like that. I know some bands are less on the socials and like have less ability and less time than others and things like that, or it may seem that way. But I think, liking other people's band pages, checking out their singles when they come out, even if it's just 3 listens on Spotify, everything helps. And I'd love to see a more of a globalness of that between genres. I know
Mm-hmm.
metal bands are great at supporting other metal bands, and rock bands sometimes support other bands and things like that. But I'd love to see pop artists posting more about the underground punk scene that they randomly found or that they listen to for their entire lives. Just because they're pop or they're R&B or their world music doesn't mean that they don't listen to hip hop or grunge music from the 90s, or
Honestly, that's why I really like Miley Cyrus, because she's the one artist that I can think of off the top of my head who is a pop music vocalist who actively promotes rock, metal, advocacy for things that matter to her.
Miley Cyrus hangs out with fucking Wayne, and that's all we gotta say. Because Wayne from the Flaming Lips is the shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Their album together was so neat. Like, it was so experimental.
You also she's a total different character too. Because like you gotta think she was raised as a famous musician's daughter, and she's the goddaughter of Dolly Parton. There's some big fucking shoes to fill in there. You know what I mean? Like, amen.
Oh yeah.
And all power to her for her being like, fuck it. I don't care if my parents and my godmother are famous.
Exactly.
Like, I'm gonna do it with me.
Yeah, and if somebody like that can do that, like, then I find anybody should be able to sort of open their mind.
Biggest like thing I see in music right now, hopeful, is like these young artists that are like 13, 14. I'm booking an interview with a kid who's 8 years old. And he's an amazing fucking drummer at 8. And I want to getting him on the show alone, and then getting kids his age to hear like, oh, well, maybe we can be musicians. Like, it's not a far-fetched dream. I think that, like, even me growing up, my entire family, like, they'll say they support my music career, but I'll openly say I can only count a handful that have been to my shows over the 20 years that I've been performing. And even now, they're like, oh, it's a hobby. I'm like, I'm a signed musician. Like, I'm on a record label. I've made it to where I need to be. It's not just a hobby. It's a job. This is a lifestyle. And I think that discouraging the youth from thinking this is a possibility is one of the biggest fucking slap in the faces to anyone.
Yeah. Like, exactly. And you don't need to make it, famous or anything like that to be successful.
No. If you've got a roof over your head, if you got a roof over your head, your bills are paid, and you're happy, even if you've got to work a 9 to 5 and still do it and be happy, like, that's all that matters. And
exactly. I think and that's the stigma I find that a lot of the older generation will use, and they'll say, oh, well, you'll never make it, you won't be rich and famous, only a handful of people will, so what's the point of even trying?
Mm-hmm.
But the point of even trying is that it's not about fame and fortune. It's about doing what you love and being successful at it.
Yeah, I don't want to be Gene Simmons. Mm-hmm. I'd rather be Mac Miller. People still love Mac Miller. People hate Gene Simmons. So there's
yes.
I would way rather be someone who's humble and like not known worldwide versus somebody who's known worldwide and just an asshole.
Yeah, like one of my favorite bands is Monster Truck out of Ontario. They're phenomenal.
Oh, hell yeah.
Not a lot of people know who they are outside of Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're great.
One of my favorite bands is from Vancouver, Ninja Spy. And like, I wish they
got famous.
They were the first band I ever got to open for. Like, we were a party band, and they came to Penticton and played at a shitty little venue, and we got to open for them, and I was like, this is the rest of my life. Like, I finally got to see what it was like to be on a stage. And I spent 6 years performing with them. Every time they came to the Okanagan, we'd play with them. So, like, I grew up with those guys, and I will still to this day say, like, they deserved more credit and popularity than they got for being how unique they were. And it's nice to see that like Adam got to play like at where Adam's made it to is just a hope for me because I look up to Adam because he's not much older than me, and like the guy's playing at Glastonbury, opening up for one of my favorite singers of all time, Michael Graves. So like,
such an incredible
that's a dude. Like I got goosebumps. Look at that. See the hair rises. Like
Yeah,
legit
say,
thinking of the fact that a local guy from Vancouver is playing for Michael Graves of the Misfits is just like, it's hope for us. You know, like our entire time growing up in BC, it's been like, yeah, we're a band because we're a band. It's never really been like we can make it world famous. Yeah. And I think that now in 2021 we have that ability, which is a fucking awesome thing. I just think that it's going to be us that has to do it. Like it's going to be our own thing that we're creating in BC with everybody, because like realistically no one else is going to do it but us, especially for the metal community. There's no venues for us. There's nothing. Like it's going to be renegade for a few years unless like bands like Spirit Box are willing to like step up and be like, yo, go check out this band, like that needs to be done more. I genuinely wish that, and I know they're good people, I've heard they're amazing people, but I'd like to see them be like, yo, go check out the BC scene, or like when they come home have some local bands open up, because like Upon a Burning Body does that. When they'll go on a world tour, headline festivals, come home, and they'll have Cauterized open for them, which is a local metal band. That right there is the most beautiful thing in my eyes. You know, like you can't forget where you're from and the scene that helped you get to there where you were, kind of a thing. Like even if the scene wasn't very supportive, you still kind of got to give credit to it because there were people in it that helped one way or another. And I think that helping bands, like Jade said, is like, you know, you need to start posting other bands' pages. You know, share your friends' bands, invite your friends to their pages. You can do that. You can click the little thing and say invite friends. Like it's not a hard thing to give 10 minutes of your day to help your friend get more successful or push further in their career.
And it doesn't have to be invite your whole friends list. No. Just be like, hey, people. I think, you know, I think my top 3 I'll share out, and then that's it. You're good to go.
Like I had a business meeting with a financial advisor about Enigma, and his one advice for me, because we're talking about the band, and he's like, my advice for bands, and I was like, okay, weird, because this is a business advisor, is that bands like to think they need 1 million fans. We like to think we need 1 million fans to be famous. In reality, we need 1,000 dedicated fans who are willing to pay $100 a year for our merchandise, to come see us play, for an album, for music sales. And then you're a $100,000 a year business band. You know what I mean? Like smaller goals are more logical than 1 million fans. Like fuck the million. Just get 100.
Exactly.
Just get 100, 500, 1,000. You know what I mean? And eventually that's where the House Spirit Box and all those bands make it, you know, because they just don't. Facebook likes don't mean anything. I think that's the biggest thing. Bands
exactly. It's kind of like when Facebook and Instagram and all that came out, and everybody was buying likes, and it doesn't matter. Nobody cares about the amount of likes that you follows that you have on your page. Like unless you've got like 100 and something thousand, then somebody might go, oh, sure, I'll like the page and then go check them out. But short of that,
it's hard to capture people's attention now too. Like Facebook is the hardest thing because they scroll. You have like what, 4 milliseconds of scroll time to capture their
attention. Facebook is kind of the dying media now that TikTok and Snapchat and even Instagram has completely taken over.
And I've been saying that for a while. That Facebook is like slowly killing itself. Like it's just gonna end up dead. So like realistically, bands need to kind of prepare themselves for the fact that social media is not going to be the one way you get popular. You actually have to physically go out there and work, networking, you know, like talk to people. That is where it's at, and that's what bands miss. Like I've seen so many bands perform a set, walk off stage, and not go and talk to a single person in the crowd.
Yep.
Yeah.
The fuck is that?
One of the things support the scene is doing as the summer months are is we're biting the bullet. We're putting money and trying to hire a few people. We're gonna buy one of those like folding tables, and at different SkyTrain stations, you know how you can go out and there's like someone with a big Jesus sign, and there's like, repent your sins. Well, if they can do it, we can go up and we can set a table up, have a bunch of band merch from different bands, and we're not making money. We're just a bunch of handbills, bunch of posters, bunch of things that we can give out to people to go check out local bands and musicians. And I'm trying to find enough budget now to hire people to man those stations, because obviously I can't man them every weekend. But I want to do it because sunny times will come. People, once the COVID things kind of dying down, and we can get the word out to people as they're walking by, and they're like, oh cool, hey, I like punk music, and we're like, oh well, here's 3 punk bands, we can pass handbills out.
Yeah. Well,
you know
that actually, Jade, touches on the one thing that I was going to say earlier when you asked that we would change in the music scene is I would love to see more local businesses supporting local music, because that's another one of those connections that you don't often see. But I know personally, I just moved to town here. I got a job at the dispensary, like literally walked in, they liked my shoes and they asked if I wanted to work there, which was cool. But within that, I let them know I'm in a band, and immediately they're offering to play our music in the store, put the video up on the monitor screens with the menus and stuff. And that would be so cool to see more stores doing with artists that they like and enjoy, and not just with music, but also the visual arts as well would be cool.
Yeah, it would be nice to see local stores like dispensaries put up local artists work in there, and like they get commission and all that. It would be there's a lot that I think our generation will change, and I think it's just we're in the midst of like that. I don't like to say it, but the boomer battle. You know what I mean? Like, my mom constantly bitches about millennials, and she's like, fucking millennials, this. And I'm like, the only people bitching about millennials are the ones who raised us. I'm sorry, but that's on you guys. Don't be bitching about it, because that's all on you. So for me, it's a laugh factor, because, like, our generation does have a lot to change. And I don't think that people realize that, like, we're taking hundreds and thousands of years of concepts and breaking the walls down in a very short amount of time. And that makes our generation a fuckload stronger than a lot of the other ones who just kind of sat back and accepted what was what. And I think that even in the music scene, in the industry, we're doing that. And I think that that's what we need. And I think that the people who we need to see that happen are seeing it. You know what I mean? And I think that it's just the more we push, the harder we push, that we will make that change. Especially in BC, because I know a lot of the rest of the world has their shit taken care of. Like the States, they don't have to worry about traveling 16 hours to go to one venue. A lot of people don't realize what we do have to deal with, especially as BC bands. Like BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan bands have it the worst out of a lot of people, because there's so much travel in between just trying to play a single show.
When you have to drive 8 to 13 hours to get to the next town.
It'd take me 6 hours to get to you guys to come play a show. Like, I gotta drive through the Coquihalla and all that to get to you guys. But like, even that, it would take you how many hours to get to Kamloops? There's only 3 cities in BC that are worth playing. You have Vancouver,
and
Kelowna,
and I'm on the island, so that's a 2-hour ferry ride on top of a drive.
And there's Nanaimo doesn't have a big music scene anymore. Like, I know it does hip hop, but not really a band. And I think that's what.
And Victoria's been hit hard too. It's always been a little slow for rock and metal shows. And
that's
stuff.
just because of the
with
border,
COVID,
or the ferry. Sorry, it costs way too much, right? Especially for bands that are trying to tour. Like, I remember when we went to Alberta and went down to the island, and then came back to the Okanagan, and the most expensive part was the ferry with all the equipment and all the people, and it was like, holy fuck! Like, for one show, it cost us like almost $800. cost
Yeah.
us,
and
we
it's
didn't even make it.
ridiculous because that's the cheapest option to get here. Like, 'cause
Mhm.
there are other ways of getting to the island, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're more expensive unless you know somebody with a boat.
Just
Exactly.
swim.
Even then, it's
Just
probably
swim.
a couple $100s in gas if you've got your own personal boat. So.
Yeah. No, and it's definitely I mean, I see a lot of hope. I see a lot of hope, especially with support the scene. Like, there's a lot of fucking hard work going in our community, and it makes me super happy because, like, I wasn't in the community 2 years ago at all. I stepped into this community literally to do what I'm doing right now, like 3 months ago, just because I saw how hard it was for any bands to get anywhere, and that kind of broke my heart. So, like, it needs change, and it like a mosh pit. It just takes that one person to stand in the floor.
Yeah.
And that's
Totally.
kind of how I see it. So I think that BC is making a huge effort for Canada music scene because
Absolutely.
we're the voice that needs to be heard.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you guys want to say before we wrap up? We're at like almost an hour and 15. I didn't realize I don't want to take too much of your guys' time up.
All right.
I
Yeah.
just want to give a quick shout out to my bandmates and all the people that listen and everyone that supports the local music scene. But also just a big thanks to people who create music. All the bands I know are hardworking, put a lot of time into doing things that they do because they love it, and I think that's so cool. And it's always weird meeting someone who doesn't play music or doesn't who isn't like artsy,
Mm-hmm.
and it blows my mind. I'm like, what do you do with your like half your day? do you not just sit in front of a computer and work on your mix? Like
Twiddle
what
your
is
knobs.
this?
I always wonder what people do if they're not artistic. I'm like, what the fuck do you do with yourself? It's like people who don't drink coffee. I'm like, how do you survive?
Yeah. So, just want to say thanks and to once again plug the album.
Yes, go cop that.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Do you guys have a pre-save link or anything?
We do.
Yes,
Send
we do.
that send that to me because I'll post that in the description of the video and all that too, and then I'll share the shit out of that because it's all about those
Sweet.
pre-saves. It's all about pre-saves.
Indeed.
For us bands, man, they help so much.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize it either. Like, I think if you get like 150 pre-saves, Spotify will put you on a certain radar to be put on playlists. So
all about those algorithms.
And that's what I mean. We don't know these kind of things, right? Like, our guitar player went into like fucking 4 hours of researching this, and then it worked. It genuinely worked on the one we just released. We ended up getting like 500 pre-saves or like close to 600 pre-saves. So it's beneficial.
That's incredible.
It's really beneficial, and pushing it is good for people. So like, I definitely we'll definitely get it. I'll get Norm to share it, and Dale will too. So we'll try and get those pre-saves for everybody up. And
Sweet.
if you guys haven't, contact Smokey from Metal Empire Radio for a takeover.
Yeah, I'm already on that.
Yeah, dude, because like honestly, Smokey, I fucking love this dude so much. He is so what he's doing on his element and front for music is amazing because his station, everybody who's in the basically in the feed, what he calls the pit. If there's 12 people in there, every time he hits play, you just got 12 streams.
Sweet.
Every time. So if there's 8 people who's sitting there every time, and he's hitting play, you're getting 8 streams. So he's very smart about what he's doing and helping bands. So I definitely recommend everybody hits him up because he's a fucking dope dude. All right, well, you guys stay safe, and I definitely want to play a show when shit opens up. We'll get you guys up here, or we'll come down there because like I think that the BC scene needs to get together and work together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Me too. You guys stay safe, and we'll be in contact for sure.
All right, you too.
Bye, guys.
Care.
Have a good weekend.
Thanks for having us on.
No worries. Peace.
Bye.